While our previous videos have focused on object-based mixing and the creation of a spatial audio environment, this video will focus on channel-based mixing, utilising the mixer window. This video follows on from the spatial setup we configured in previous videos, so we recommend watching them first. By default, our mixer window will show input faders along the top, matrix crosspoints in the middle, and output faders along the bottom. The mixer also contains group faders, which we'll talk about later. From top to bottom, our input channel will show the currently applied EQ, the channel name, and the name of any track running from the internal playback engine. Then we have the channel fader and a polarity reverse button. Below the fader, we have the current fader level alongside the relative trim of the input channel caused by membership of any group faders. Below this, we have the channel link, group membership, solo, and mute buttons. At the very bottom of the strip, we have an indicator that shows whether the channel is currently an object on the pan space or whether it's locked to an image definition. You'll see to the left of the input faders, we have a button called Source Levels. When we click this button, we gain access to a submixer that exists before the input channel in the signal chain. This submixer combines signals from any connected input cards, network audio cards, and the internal playback engine. It's possible to automate the fader levels of this submixer on a cue-by-cue basis. Below the input channel strip lies the level and delay crosspoint matrix at the heart of the TiMax. You should see that the channels we've placed as objects in the pan space have had their matrix crosspoints automatically populated based on the output of the spatial algorithm. It's possible to manually edit all TiMax matrix crosspoints. The most convenient way of doing this is to click the Show Matrix Sliders button and make use of the faders that will appear. As the labels indicate, the left fader sets the crosspoint level and the right fader sets the crosspoint delay. As objects move in the pan space, you'll see these values change live. Our output channel strips are very similar to our input channel strips. Above our faders we have an EQ window and the channel name, and below the fader we have the polarity reverse, link, group, solo, and mute buttons. Should you wish to do so, it's possible to add a further 42 milliseconds of fixed delay to every output. Clicking the Output Delays button toggles the faders to control the output delay time. Click Output Levels to toggle back to output level control. TiMax automatically patches every output channel to each possible output route. So if your unit has both a Dante card and an AES card, both will receive the corresponding output channels simultaneously. When naming channels, you can use the Tab key to cycle through each channel individually, or you can perform bulk naming actions by importing data from a CSV file. To carry out this operation, we use the Import I/O Labels from CSV file option found in the File menu. Channel names can also be changed on a cue-by-cue basis, but we'll cover that in a later video. Should you create an EQ curve that you would like to apply elsewhere, you can simply drag and drop curves between channels. The TiMax show file also contains an EQ library. To access this library, click the EQ button in the toolbar at the top of the main window. The EQ library is now displayed in the left pane. Curves can be dragged into this space and then dragged onto other channels as appropriate. It's also possible to edit EQ curves from within the EQ library by clicking this Edit button. The TiMax mixer includes group functionality. If you're familiar with VCAs, DCAs or control groups on a traditional mixing console, you'll already understand groups in TiMax. Groups provide us with control over any number of input or output faders via a single group fader. The group fader acts as an extra gain offset in the signal chain of any associated input or output channel. To add an input or output channel to a group, we first press the Group button at the top of the mixer window, and we'll be presented with this pop-up. We can dock these groups below the output faders for convenience with this button on the left of the pop-up. With our groups accessible, let's add input channels 1 and 2 to Group 1. First, switch on the group assignment mode for the group we would like to assign channels to. To do this, simply double-click the bar at the top of the group. The bar should start flashing green to indicate we can assign channels to it. We then double-click the G button below each relevant input or output channel. This assigns the channel to the group. Finally, To exit the group assignment mode, we double-click the top bar again. You'll see that channels 1 and 2 now show their group memberships here. Just like our channels, it's possible to name groups. We do that from this name field just above the group fader. Beyond the mixer functionality, there are a few other functions we'd like to draw your attention to in the main window. Starting in the toolbar, we can enable or disable input from tracking systems with this button. We can also enable and disable internal playback from this button. Both these functions can be incredibly useful during rehearsal or troubleshooting scenarios. If we want to access files stored on the SoundHub's internal drive, we can do so from this button in the toolbar. This will display all the show files and audio tracks stored on the unit. Lastly, you'll have noticed the Store System Preset button has started flashing if you've adjusted any output fader levels. We'll cover best practice around system presets in a later video. This concludes our deep dive into the Matrix Mixer. Join us in the next video to learn about the timeline and audio playback on a TiMax SoundHub.